The following documentary is based on both fact and opinion and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Some of the images presented have been generated with artificial intelligence. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of all parties involved in the production. We encourage viewers to conduct their own research and consult multiple sources.
We all know that Hollywood and racism often goes hand in hand. But what many people don't realize is that long before the Hollywood sign ever went up, racism was already center stage in American entertainment. This wasn't just a side note, it was the foundation. Blackface minstrel shows weren't hidden in the shadows. They were mainstream. They were celebrated. And they were attended by everyone from everyday folks to some of the most powerful people in the country, presidents, inventors, authors. These weren't just performers in grease paint. These were architects of culture. They built the stereotypes, then they sold them to the world. Before there were cameras, there was the stage. And before there was Hollywood, there was a country already addicted to caricatures and racism. This is not just the story of film. This is the story of how America chose to entertain itself by degrading black people, and how that choice became a business, a billion-dollar business. This is the hysterically hateful history of Hollywood. Take 1. The Minstrel Cycle. In the early 1800s, minstrel shows emerged as a uniquely American form of entertainment, where white performers donned blackface makeup to caricature and mock black people. These performances played a significant role in creating and reinforcing harmful stereotypes. But why? Out of all the ways that people could be entertained, did they choose to degrade a specific race? The answer lies in the social and racial dynamics of the time. Minstrel shows reinforce existing racial hierarchies, allowing white audiences to feel superior and justify their oppressive systems. One of the most damaging stereotypes these shows promoted was the idea that black people were lazy, buffoonish, cowardly, and less than human. But think about it.
All right now, y'all fresh niggas, y'all gonna be in a cutting gang. Very simple. I want you to take your knife, get in them cane, make it sing. Take the cane out, cut my tops, clean the shucks off, throw it on a pile for the planting gang. Nah, them cane ain't gonna jump up and bite you. Don't shy back.
How could the same people who were too lazy to work their own fields, who chose instead to enslave others and use violence to maintain their way of life, have the nerve to call anyone else lazy? What could be more cowardly than hiding behind whips, chains, guns, and the threat of death to control unarmed people? What could be more buffoonish than acting like wild animals, believing in racial superiority while building an economy off the backs of those you claimed were inferior? And what could be more savage than enslaving human beings, tearing apart families, and normalizing brutality for generations? One performer in particular, Thomas Dartmouth Daddy Rice, made a career out of this by popularizing the character Jim Crow. Born in New York City in 1808, Rice worked in various theater jobs before gaining national fame in the 1830s. He claimed to have been inspired by black stable hands singing and dancing, which he then stole the concept and then exaggerated and performed in blackface for white audiences. His routine, featuring the song Jump Jim Crow, became widely popular and catapulted him into stardom. Rice's act just didn't entertain, it helped embed racial caricatures into American culture. The term Jim Crow would eventually come to define the laws that enforced segregation across the South. His success made blackface a standard part of American entertainment for decades. In addition to Rice, several other performers played pivotal roles in shaping the minstrel tradition. George Washington Dixon popularized the song Zip Coon, which became another staple of minstrel performances. Edwin Pierce Christie founded Christie's Minstrels, one of the most famous minstrel tropes of the era. Billy Whitcock co-founded the Virginia Minstrels, the first group to perform a full minstrel show. Together, these figures helped solidify the popularity and influence of blackface minstrelsy, leaving a lasting impact on American culture. Take 2. Lights, camera, blaction. As time progressed and new inventions emerged, so did the reach of racial stereotypes. Thomas Edison's invention of the kinetoscope paved the way for motion pictures, bringing new dimensions to how stories were told and how stereotypes were perpetuated. Now, to be fair, we can't blame Edison just for inventing the technology. After all, inventions take on a life of their own. It wasn't the camera's fault that it was used to spread racism. The responsibility lies with the people who chose to use it in that way. And one of the first and most infamous examples was The Birth of a Nation in 1915, directed by D.W. Griffith. The film is often credited with revolutionizing cinematic storytelling, using techniques like cross-cutting, close-ups, and epic battle scenes. But it did so while pushing one of the most racist narratives ever put on screen. It portrayed black men, many played by white actors in blackface, as dangerous, animalistic, and a threat to white womanhood. Meanwhile, it painted the Ku Klux Klan as heroes, riding in to restore order in the South. The film was a box office success, but its impact went far beyond money. It was screened in the White House at the invitation of President Woodrow Wilson, making it the first film ever to receive such a platform. That screening gave The Birth of a Nation a dangerous legitimacy, signaling to the country that its message wasn't just acceptable, but endorsed by the government of the United States. As a result, the film played a major role in the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, which re-emerged shortly after its release and gained tens of thousands of new members. And while it might be easy to say Edison only invented the machine, the truth is, he didn't just sit on the sidelines. His own studio produced films like A Morning Bath and 10 Pickaninnies.
How do you feel, Mr. Bones?
Well, I feel as usual.
How is that? Dry. Mr.
Edison's company filmed and distributed scenes that degraded black people for laughs, proving he wasn't just an inventor, he was also an active participant in building the foundation of racism in American film. He gave Hollywood the tools, and he also helped teach it what to do with them. Take 3, Breaking the Screen. Following the success of The Birth of a Nation, early filmmakers realized just how powerful motion pictures could be, not just to entertain, but to shape public opinion. And unfortunately, many followed the same blueprint. Blackface performances, caricatures, racial stereotypes, and racial tropes weren't seen as shameful, they were seen as profitable. For Black performers, survival in this environment meant impossible choices. Opportunities were few and far between. Those who managed to get on screen often had to play into the very same stereotypes that degraded them. They could either stay invisible or stay employed by playing roles that mocked their own people. One of the earliest Black film stars to navigate this impossible reality was Lincoln Perry, better known as Stepin Fetchit. He rose to fame in the 1920s and 30s by portraying the lazy Negro stereotype.
Hey, you give me my letter here. You know too much about my business now. Don't you want me to read it? Yeah, I want you to read it, but I don't want you to hear it. You wait a minute here. Now here. And put that in yours first. Put this in my ears? Yeah, 'cause what you want here sure won't hurt you.
The slow-talking, slow-moving caricature white audiences had been trained to expect. To some, he was a pioneer, the first Black actor to achieve major success in Hollywood. To others, he embodied everything that they were fighting against. And Stepin Fetchit wasn't alone. Many Black performers of the era, like Willie Best and Manton Moorhead, found themselves boxed into comic relief roles, always the sidekick, never the hero. They brought talent, timing, and heart to their performances, but the scripts handed to them kept them chained to the same tired images. Behind the scenes, Black filmmakers like Oscar Micheaux were fighting to tell different stories. Micheaux wrote, directed, and produced his own films, stories of Black ambition, love, struggle, and resilience. But without the backing of major studios, his films were limited in reach, circulating mostly within segregated theaters known as the Chitlin Circuit. So while Hollywood built an empire off distorted Black images, a separate underground cinema was trying to tell the truth, a truth that the mainstream refused to show. Take 4, the struggle on screen. By the time the civil rights movement took to the streets, Hollywood could no longer ignore the fire outside its studio gates. The pressure was building from protests, from viewers, from a rising generation of Black performers demanding more than just a seat at the table. They wanted the whole script to change. And in the center of that shift was Sidney Poitier. He became the first Black man to consistently land leading roles in major films. He was a symbol of pride, a man who opened doors by simply refusing to bow. Meanwhile, Hollywood began flirting with more direct stories about race. Films like In the Heat of the Night showed a Black man slapping a white man back, a scene that sent shockwaves through the industry. It was progress, but tightly controlled. As the civil rights movement gained steam, Hollywood studios started producing more message movies. Films that tried to tackle racism head-on, but still through a mostly white lens. Movies like The Defiant Ones paired black and white characters together in chains, forcing them to cooperate, but always with the message that racism could be solved through personal friendship, not systematic change. Behind the scenes, the power stayed in the same hands. The producers, screenwriters, and studio executives shaping these films were almost entirely white. That meant even when a film featured black characters or dealt with racism, it was filtered through a white perspective, often cautious, often sanitized. Black creatives were still locked out of the writers' rooms and the decision-making tables. If a black actor had concerns about a script or character, they often had no authority to push back. Some tried, others walked away, but most were forced to choose between staying silent or losing work. Take 5. Breaking the Chains. Melvin Van Peebles, born in Chicago in 1932, was a trailblazer who helped ignite the blaxploitation era. After starting his career as a novelist and filmmaker in France, Van Peebles returned to the U.S., frustrated by the lack of meaningful roles for black actors in Hollywood. Determined to change the narrative, he independently created Sweetback's Badass Song in 1971. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with it. Van Peebles had to finance the film himself and use guerrilla marketing to generate buzz. The film earned an X rating, faced limited distribution, and was harshly criticized by the mainstream critics. Even some within the black community worried that it reinforced certain stereotypes, but its success proved otherwise. Audiences showed up in droves, and they saw something they had never seen before.
Leave! Split! Leave, mother!
You offer pretty good news to me slapping up on some white cops.
A strong, rebellious black man who survives. Next came Gordon Parks. Born in Kansas in 1912, a celebrated photographer for Life magazine, Parks turned his lens to cinema, becoming the first African American to direct a major Hollywood studio film with The Learning Tree in 1969. 2 years later, he directed Shaft and redefined the black hero. Richard Roundtree's performance as John Shaft brought swagger to the screen and gave black audiences a new kind of icon. Parks didn't just direct a film, he shifted the tone of Hollywood. And then there was Pam Grier, with roles like Coffee, Foxy Brown, and Sheba Baby. Grier shattered expectations. Blaxploitation films weren't perfect. Many were written and directed by white filmmakers and were packed with violence, sex, and drug tropes. Some saw them as exploiting black pain and culture for profit, but others saw something different: visibility, attitude, power. For the first time, black characters were front and center, and they weren't asking for permission. Take 6. Fade to black. As the energy of the blaxploitation era faded by the late 1970s, so did Hollywood's interest in black-centered stories. But while Hollywood was retreating, black creativity wasn't. In the shadows of the mainstream, a new wave of storytellers began building something of their own. People like Robert Townsend, who scraped together his own money to create Hollywood Shuffle. a biting satire that exposed the racism black actors still face just trying to make it.
Played 9 crooks, 4 gang leaders, 2 dope dealers. I played a rapist twice. Whoa. That was fun.
They'll never play the Rambos until they stop playing the Sambos.
And then came Spike Lee with She's Gotta Have It, School Days, and Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee didn't ask for permission. His films weren't just stories, they were statements. He tackled race, power, gentrification, and culture with a camera and a vision. Another voice rose in a different way, Eddie Murphy. In 1982's 48 Hours, Murphy delivered a line that echoed far beyond the screen.
There's a new sheriff in town. And his name is Reggie Hammond. Y'all be cool. Right on.
It might have been a comedy, but for a generation of black viewers, it was something they had never seen. A young, confident black man standing toe-to-toe with authority and claiming power. And Eddie Murphy didn't stop there with movies like Coming to America, Harlem Nights, and later Life. He not only built blockbuster hits, but filled his cast with legendary black talent, giving opportunities to comedians, actors, and actresses who otherwise might have been overlooked by the system. Or the Hughes brothers, who brought grit and realism with films like Menace to Society. Studio heads balked at giving full creative control to black directors. Even some within the black community debated whether these films reflected strength or stirred division. By the 1990s, Hollywood had opened its doors just a crack. Black filmmakers were finally getting studio deals. Films like Boys in the Hood by John Singleton, Love and Basketball by Gina Prince Bythewood, and Set It Off by F. Gary Gray brought new voices and new stories to the screen. Take 8. New screens, same struggles. By the 2010s, a new wave of black filmmakers were making noise. But this time, it wasn't just through Hollywood's traditional gates. Streaming platforms, independent studios, and social media opened new lanes. For the first time, black creators could build their own audiences without begging for a seat at someone else's table. But with new opportunities came new pressures and old struggles in new clothes. Jordan Peele's Get Out shattered box office expectations and tore apart the myth of a post-racial America. His success proved that black-led films could dominate both culturally and financially. Ryan Coogler stormed the industry with Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther, and now Sinners. Sinners didn't just perform well, it broke a box office record for the highest opening since COVID-19. Issa Rae's Insecure showed that everyday black life could be messy, funny, relatable without centering trauma. She carved out a space where black characters simply lived, loved, and messed up like everyone else. Viola Davis still has to fight for pay equality.
Because once again, I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. And yet, I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it.
John Boyega still faces backlash for speaking the truth to power.
You racist white people. I said what I said. And if you don't like it, go suck a dick.
Halle Bailey still has to weather racist outrage for simply taking a role. Idris Elba still gets criticized as too street for daring to step into iconic roles. The road is still uphill for every black creative who follows. A century after Blackface first stained American cinema, the fight for ownership, respect, and authentic storytelling still continues. The technology has changed, the face on the screens have changed, but behind the scenes, the battle remains the same. If you have found this information enlightening, eye-opening, or even thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ask Blackwards, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on what's coming next. And as usual, this is Ask Blackwards, and I am your host, T-Can Hustle, signing off.